Texas manhandles Dylan, quite literally, UTSA 56-7. This quick reaction is part of HornSports' Longhorns coverage. We appreciate all your support, as always. So, Dylan, it was not pretty for the Roadrunners from the start. Quinn Ewers threw 2 touchdown passes in the first quarter, one to Bond, one to Cook, and then the game kind of flipped, but not for the right reasons for either team. Quinn Ewers, of course, injured. Arch Manning comes into the game. But for the Roadrunners, I guess things stayed consistent because while they did let up those 2 scores in the first quarter, it was a little more of a quiet game. And after that injury, Dylan, it seemed like the offense even exploded for more big plays, which is somewhat surprising, I guess you could say. But Dylan, how did you feel about this Texas game and performance?
Just the receiver talent, Devon, just fully on display. Going into this game, when we were talking about it, I was like, it seems like a game where you could see Texas have 2 receivers with over 100 yards receiving, and we had that. And surprisingly enough, you had the Ryan Wingo with almost a Randy Moss level stat line of just 3 catches, but 127 yards. And on the other end, you're seeing Isaiah Bond start to really showcase why he's the number 1 receiver on this team, specifically with Ewers just getting him the ball, but then what he's able to do on screen passes, even with Arch Manning, and just able to make plays with his feet. This team is just absolutely scary, Devin, and the defense is flying around. I think the main takeaway from this game is how does Ewers look going into next week? Is he going to be able to play against Louisiana Monroe? And more importantly, is he going to be ready for SEC play when Mississippi State comes into town, right? So that's the big discussions or talking points, I feel like, going into next week. But after this game, Arch Manning showing exactly, I would say, the difference between him and Ewers with his athleticism, that long run, looking like Daniel Jones out there without tripping, obviously, but just flying around the field. He looks good. Obviously, coaching staff wanted just to more so lean on the run game, but having that open bomb to Ryan Wingo, Texas is in a good spot when it comes to quarterback depth, is what I would say, which is what you'd be hoping to go in this season, just with Ewers having some just injury issues in past years as well.
Well, Dylan, I'm sure Florida State has already hit the UT hotline in terms of quarterback
Oh,
talk because
please, anybody.
I feel like most teams in college football could use a quarterback of Arch's caliber, even with him being fresh off the bench. You get him more reps, of course, he gets better with time. He looked pretty good against UTSA. Yet again, 5 touchdowns. But Dylan, like you said, I think the key storyline from this game is injuries. Quinn Ewers, Dylan, the success of the Longhorns, despite an awesome performance from Arch, really does hinge on number three's right arm. And with him out, potentially a week or 2, we'll see. A bruised abdomen is the official medical diagnosis. If you look it up, Dylan, it can say 1 to 2 weeks, maybe longer, but these guys are football players, and I'm going to call them professional football players at that, with good training staff. If you want to hold them out next weekend against ULM, I don't think that's going to be too big of a deal. However, we're going to see how long that injury is really just causing him pain, and it just don't. I don't know. You didn't see the injury. I didn't see the injury. It just seemingly appeared. I know he got.
It was just magnified on the broadcast. It was he was taking some hits. I know after he ran the ball as well for a scamper, kind of came up just a bit gimpy, and I think it's just over time he was just like, I can't do this anymore. If I take one more hit, I'm done for. And I'm sure it tightened up on him as well, and felt like a really bad cramp. I'm not a doctor, so I don't know
Yeah,
exactly
expert
what's
analysis.
happening there. But yeah, he just ended up on the ground, and it was just kind of like, oh. And then he's pointing to his rib area, so it's like, if this is a rib injury, he's going to be out more than 2 weeks with the amount of hits that he just seemingly takes
Yeah, well,
every game, even if the offensive line's got a pretty good pocket going.
I think the closest we are to Doctor's Dill is drinking Dr. Pepper, in terms of the Quinn Ewers connection there, the deputy, if you will. But yeah,
Great ad
great,
placement.
great ad. And by the
Yeah.
way, Arch knew about it ahead of time. That's what we learned at the press conference yesterday. So just so you guys are aware, there was no beef there. If you were interested at all. But Dylan, that Ewers injury, as you said, seemed like a bunch of little things just added up. We're going to see and monitor his health status. Jadon Blue, of course, was held out of the game, probably more so precautionary, but he's dealing with his own injury, so we're going to be keeping up with that as well because those two players are really the keys for that Longhorn offense. But Dylan, as you said earlier, it seems like at wide receiver, somehow, some way, this group might be even more deep than last year's group, which had Xavier Worthy and Adonai Mitchell. What do you think about this core as a whole? I know you were already talking about Wingo and Bond, but you also have Matthew Golden as well. And Silas Bolden, who doesn't get as much run time, but still had, I believe, 800 plus all-purpose yards last year. How easy does this group make it for Arch Manning if he's needed to be playing again next weekend?
Makes it so much easier. And the talent level of just the guys being able to get open and then just make things happen even if they get the ball in their hands. And then you got Gunnar Helm at tight end who looks, I mean, I know he only had one catch, but jumping over a player like depending on how like the game situation is going, he's another guy that could have 5+ catches in a game. The offense is just so loaded. The only, I mean, the only thing is, it's like when they go up against more talented teams in the SEC, how's that gonna shake up, right? But they also played against a secondary from Michigan that has one of the best corners in the league, and they looked phenomenal out there as well. So the big thing really is just somewhat of a chemistry and the youth aspect. He's got Ryan Wingo, who's only a freshman. Like 2 years, he's going to be absolutely insane on the pace that
He's
he's
already
going at. So
insane, yeah.
Missouri just has to be just throwing things against the wall right now in frustration, but they look great as well. So yeah, I mean, it's just in terms of the first 3 games of the season. I mean, this is offense looks exactly how you were expecting it to going into it, and they look the part. It just kind of comes down to, and this always happens to teams that look really good and they're blowing teams out, but how are they going to look in a close game, Devin? That's really the next stage for this team in terms of chemistry and youth and how that's tested, because they've just been able to get off the phenomenal starts and score on the first drive, which is a testament to this offensive coaching staff and coaching staff in general. But yeah, that's really the next hurdle or test I'd want to say to see for Texas.
Yeah, and just touching on that last point again, Wingo, a freshman, Dylan. I almost started to feel bad for some of the other guys like DeAndre Moore and Jonte Cook. And then in this game, Moore is a starter, so you shouldn't feel bad for him. But Moore finally found the end zone. Then Jonte Cook scored his first and second career collegiate touchdowns. So they're getting everybody involved here. And then, yeah, Dylan, hurdles, of course, are coming soon. Conference play is going to be starting, and regardless of who you're playing in the SEC, there is a chance of an upset that's legitimate. But Dylan, I guess we're just going to have to wait and see on that point. But defensively, how are you feeling about this group? I'm going to start here with Dylan. Colin Simmons. I mean, we have a cage dog with Ant Hill at linebacker, but maybe we just have two cage dogs on the field at all times, because Simmons, he mentioned it yet again after the game against UTSA. He said he's just now starting to feel confident, and it almost sounded like a scene from The Other Guys, the way he was talking about himself. I mean, his confidence, if he's just now starting to feel confident, in the amount of confidence he was kind of spewing in a good way, is already sky high. I can't imagine where else it's going to be going, but it is sort of lion and tuna situation, Dylan. You got two guys that are just like literally salivating anytime they see an opposing quarterback step foot on the field. Like it's tangible when you hear those guys talk. So Ant Hill says he sees a lot of himself in Simmons. Simmons sees a lot of Micah Parsons and Von Miller in himself.
Yeah.
It is scary, but Dylan, for the Longhorns, how good is it to finally see a pass rush from some of these added positions, such as the linebacker and the edge positions?
It's ridiculous. And I also wanted to say, Devin, I see myself in a lot of these players as well, right? So don't get that twisted. I'm proud of them. I see a lot of what I used to be able to do on the Pee Wee Football League, so I can't pronounce it. But no, like with this defense, it's insane, because it's like if Anthony Hill is just now starting to get confident,
That's Simmons.
what's left? Simmons, sorry.
But
And
that's
like
even
that's the thing.
scarier because he's played how many games? You know, he's
It's
3 weeks in. He's like, "Oh, I'm starting to like college football," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I feel bad for opposing quarterbacks."
they got it all on three levels. That like Makuba looks absolutely insane back there in the secondary, right? And then you got Simmons and Hill up front in the front seven. If all three levels just have dogs running around the field that just seemingly are mad the entire time. I don't know what they do before the games start. Some people have manifestation exercises, meditation. I just think they have a coach berate them for 10 minutes about why they shouldn't be out on the field and why they won't accomplish anything. And then just take it out on the opposing offense. So this is exactly what you want to see on the other side of the ball for Texas. Because again, I talked about it last time. Without Byron Murphy, without Devontae Sweat, who is going to come in and replace these guys? And it looks like they're just going to replace it with young talent that's going to be around for a while.
It seemed like even Michael Taft, Dylan, had a little bit of that cage dog in him yesterday.
Well, it's infectious. Yeah.
Yeah, he had to play behind the line of scrimmage that caused a turnover on downs where I'm sure the player that he hit is needing to book a chiropractor appointment because I felt that from the press box. But, I mean, yet again, we haven't seen this much talent, I feel like, defensively overall. I mean, last year on the defensive front, sure, more talented with Byron Murphy and Devondre Sweat. But at the linebacker position, to have guys that are, as Dylan said, legitimate dogs, and that's how they see themselves, Dylan. I mean, Colin Simmons was talking about that. He said he has that dog mentality. Just to have that, and then also in the secondary, with it kind of bleeding over to a new addition in Andrew Makuba, and it seems like it's even kind of spread to some of the players that have already been there. It's exciting to see. However, UTSA is UTSA, Dylan. I don't want to hate on Michigan, but they're learning how to play in a new post-Harbaugh era. And then the week one matchup, of course, nothing special as well.
Well, after that Colorado loss, Colorado State's not on the uphill climb here.
Exactly. So it's going to be, I guess, something to see how this defense can hold up against teams that are a little bit more of a threat in terms of scoring the football. Time will tell, but any last thoughts or takeaways from this game?
Yes, Texas is taking care of business, and this is what you want to see out of a title contending team. They're doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. They're not letting the foot off the gas pedal in any of these games. Even their bench players, when they come in, they're going out there trying to prove something. So Sark's got them ready mentally, and that's exactly where you want to be going into these next few games. And then you got Oklahoma and Georgia, right? So I like where they're at. And this is, again, I know it's against UTSA, who's struggling. I think they'll get better as the season goes along, but they haven't had a great stretch to start the season. But Texas is handling teams the way they're supposed to.
As Dylan says, this team is tracking in the right direction. I think the key, as mentioned multiple times, is to stay healthy. I think the medical staff logged the most steps against UTSA out of anybody, including the players. So for Steve Sarkisian, you don't want to see that. And Dylan, I guess we'll see how that works out. Cross your fingers, Longhorns fans. But more important than our thoughts about the game, how did you feel about Texas's performance against UTSA? Let us know down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And as always, have a great rest of your day.